Assalamu alaikum. I am Dr. Zainab, your doctor, digital doctor, and again live with my special guest, Mr. Jason Grant from UK. Today, we will discuss about purposeful life. First of all, thank you so much, sir, for giving me time for this live session, for this interview. I am very thankful to you. My guest belongs from Bosnia uh, and his initial name was Mirza Bashid, and now he is Jason Grant, and he's transformational coach from the past 7 years. And I have learned a lot. He is just like my teacher and my coach as well. In the time of the COVID, when I was in anxiety and I was going into depression, he was the person who bring me out from that mental state. So I am very thankful to him, and I remember the kind words he gave to me that make my heart calm and peaceful. So thank you so much, sir, for coming. I would like you from you that please give brief introduction of yourself for our audience. Uh, that from where your journey start, your initial education, and now at this stage.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Thank you so much. And salam alaikum to all the audience. I'll give a sort of brief overview of my life. I was born in ex-Yugoslavia, and up until the age of 11, I'd grown up there. And then the war in Yugoslavia kicked off, where Yugoslavia broke up into several different states, one of which is Bosnia and Herzegovina, where I'm originally from. So I spent 3 years in the war in Bosnia as a teenager from the ages of 11 to 14. And eventually we got expelled at the gunpoint from our house, and I ended up having to become a refugee. I eventually ended up going through Croatia and ended up in United Kingdom as a refugee, always thinking I was going to go back to Bosnia at some point. Lo and behold, my life took, its kind of course in UK, and I started going to school and college and university, and then a master's degree, and all these kind of things. And I started realizing that, I'm going to stay in UK as a citizen here. I got a wife, children, house, everything, career and so on. And so through my life, I was focused on building my career, earning money, building, like getting a house, getting family together, all these kind of things. And at one point around the age of 35, I'd suddenly had a similar kind of experience like you, which was that I suddenly became depressed, and I really needed help, mentally, really, because I realized that by that age of 35, I had already kind of achieved everything that I set my mind on up until that point, and suddenly I was kind of missing purpose, missing goals in life, missing what to do next. And I actually came to a point where I was quite suicidal, really, because it's sort of I want to now end the life because I really achieved everything. And, this was completely not, the way I had lived my life up until then. So I was thinking, how do I suddenly feel like this? Whereas up until now, I was feeling really kind of motivated and ready to go. And it took me a little while, like a few months, really, of kind of very deep self-analysis to understand that suddenly what was happening is all the kind of accumulated trauma and grief and worries and anxiety and depression and these kind of negative thoughts and feelings had come up in my body and my mind, that they were ready to be released and let go of, so that I can have clarity in my head and my body and my kind of soul and spirit to really understand how am I supposed to lead the rest of my life, and what am I supposed to do with it. And that's how I ended up designing a course, because I've been working as a designer up until then, designing the software systems and all these kind of things. So I decided to use my design skill set to start redesigning my own mind. And I created a program called Fresh Mind that's literally geared towards doing that, taking a person who is suffering and struggling and has mental kind of blockages and barriers, and help them remove all those barriers to get to a point where they can actually have a clarity on what the purpose of their life is and how to live it with full potential. So that's really, in a nutshell, how I came to this. And for the last 7 years or so, I've been helping people actively and proactively in both giving advice, recording videos that help with these things, but also practically in one-to-one sessions, going through their individual specific blockages and unblocking them through their participation, of course. So yeah.
That's great. Because as I am a doctor, I feel very satisfied when I used to serve people, when I used to give them a good advice. That is very satisfactory. You are author of a book that is Design Company. So please tell our audience about your book. What is it about?
So I'm writing a book called Design Company, and really that's distilling all my experience from working with different businesses over the last 20 years, helping them start up or helping them redesign themselves, reorganize themselves, whether it's on a product service level or with finances or systems and those kind of things, or how they should serve customers with customer experience. So that book is about creating well-designed companies that serve people properly. But really, I'm also authoring 2 other books in the process. And for me, this is more of a kind of slower process rather than, people say, oh, I'm going to sit down and write this book in 7 days. For me, it's a lot more about distilling what's really worth writing down. But those 2 other books are really, one is called Living with Integrity, which is very much about life that is well aligned with one's personal values and characteristics and the kind of blueprint that God made us in. So Living with Integrity. And the other book is really what we're notionally calling at the moment the Book of Fresh Mind, which is really distilling and describing some of the very positive mental programs that all of us can benefit from having, not just clearing through the issues that we have, which is one process, but the other process is then having understanding and realization about the positive attitudes that we can be playing through all the time in our minds that then continuously generate great results and outcomes in life. So that's that.
So I was watching one of your video about conscious living in a conscious way.
Mm-hmm.
Will you explain this concept of consciously living?
Mm-hmm. Sure. So many of the listeners might recognize the ideas of God, Allah, and
Allah.
Shaitan, the devil. Okay.
Yes,
So
devil.
it's a kind of very, in some sense, this is somewhat the simplification, but it's a useful simplification, that there are 2 forces in the universe. Sometimes, if you're an electrical engineer, one is like negative and positive wires, you put them together and it runs the electricity. So, the negative and positive forces, and our brains are actually split in 2 sides, left hemisphere and right hemisphere, and they have 2 different kind of roles. In this case, the logical and creative visual side of the brain. And so both forces, the Shaitan and Allah, okay, are influencing us at any point in time. And
yes,
and they are programming our minds. Okay. And what is the mind? It's the software that's running on the brain. So the brain
yes,
is like the processor that processes do this, don't do that, and so on. But the mind is like the program that says every time you see a cake, you should eat it. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's more of a like a shaitan thing. Okay. uh,
Yes.
so if you constantly eat the cake, you're going to get fat, and you're going to get all sorts of diseases, type 2 diabetes. You're going to suffer with like knee problems because the fat is going to be pressing on your knees and joints and all that kind of stuff. And then people will end up in your clinic asking for medicines and pills and tablets to somehow remedy the pain in their knees, whereas originally the devil effectively was telling them eat too much cake and they got too fat. So really, there's all these kind of connotations that happen from bad mental programs or bad instructions that we get given in life, and that we just kind of take as though they are us, like, that's who I am. And we just run that until something happens, which is that we kind of sit and reflect and start having higher self-awareness, which is consciousness. We start really becoming aware of where did all this come from, and why am I doing something that is has been somehow either told to me, or I might have picked this up as early as 3 years old when I was a child. Because, for example, when I was growing up, um, you know, our parents used to reward us with sweets. If you do something nice, you get a sugar candy, and you're like,
Yes.
oh, I'm really happy. And then you start associating success in life with sugar.
Yes.
Therefore, every time I do something good, I'm going to have cake, or I'm going to have a sweet of some sort, or I'm going
Sweet.
to drink coffee with 2 sugars in it, or something like that. And that actually has very negative knock-on effects throughout our lives. But our parents did that for us with absolute love and thinking this is the best that we could have. Okay. So nowadays, for example, I would say, if I do something good, if something happens well, I would actually drop down on the floor and do 20 push-ups to celebrate. Okay. But that's a very completely different, and almost to some people, it sounds like almost punishment, right? But we know that it's a strange thing about life, that sometimes, the things that are easiest to do are the worst for us. I can just lie on the sofa right now and do nothing, and eventually, my life is going to be a misery. Okay, because I
Yes.
won't achieve anything, I won't move forward. But if I go out to the garden, clean the garden a bit, sort out the debris and the woods and so on, I'll develop a little bit of cardio activity. Oxygen's going to start pumping through my body. Brain's going to start thinking. I'll be like, maybe I could start, doing this for other people, clean the gardens for other people, maybe charge a little bit of money and so on. Before you even know, you might have started like a garden cleaning company. Okay. But it's not going to happen by just lying on the sofa, unless you're lying on the sofa with a specific intent to awaken, to become more aware of what's really going on in your life, and what are the things that you should be removing, the kind of shaitan programming, let's say, and the things that you should be installing, which is more of the God or Allah programming that will drive you forward and build you up.
Yes. Yes, as we are Facebook friends, and I always admire and inspire from your daily activities about exercise and game and all these things. And in your goals, I have seen that on the top is physical health. So,
Yes.
would you like to give some comments about physical fitness and
Mhm.
its importance?
Yeah. So physical fitness and health is effectively a reflection of mental fitness and health. So some
Yeah.
sort of more sort of esoteric teachers and coaches and guides might say something like, your physical body is a 3D printout of your mind. Okay. So Dr. Zainab, you will know yourself that when patients come into your clinic or
Yes.
dial in to you nowadays, because it's all kind of quite virtual, when patients dial in or come in, they might say, I've got a headache. I've got a really bad headache. Now, that headache could be caused by all sorts of things, but probably one of the first things you might ask them is, are you stressed out? Are you drinking enough water? Are you, you know, are things in your life pressurizing you to give you that kind of internal stress that affects the body to such an extent that we end up having pain. Sometimes we have pain in the back, pain in the lower back, pain in the head, all sorts of pains. And they're not really caused by any necessarily physical thing, but they are induced by the mind that is producing that stress in the nervous system, and then that nervous system reflects pain in the body. And to me, pain is very important teacher and information that tells me that probably my mind, that something needs to be happening in my mind that I need to correct in order to relax the body to not have the pain. And so nowadays, if I, for example, anytime I go to a doctor, they'd say that anywhere between 70 to 80% of pains or illnesses or things like that are caused by stress. And then it's a question of what causes stress. And that's really the thing to work out. And the stress is originated in the mind, and really stress is effectively, there are, again, going back to two states, or negative and positive. There is the state of ease, okay, which is I'm doing something easy. For example, if I set out to clean the garden, I might say, well, that's my purpose right this moment. I'm going to go out and clean the garden. And when I've cleaned the garden, then I'm going to have that kind of satisfaction. I can look back and it's nice and clean and orderly and so on. So if I do that with ease, then that's just beautiful way of leading life in a conscious way. But if I don't do it with ease, then that's called dis-ease. Okay,
Yes.
dis-ease, and that's stress. Okay, which means that, oh, I'm cleaning this garden. Why did these leaves always come on? You know, why do I have to do this? Why is it not somebody else? I hate this. I would rather be watching TV or go out there and drink with my friends or something like that. And that's dis-ease, and that reflects itself in the body eventually as stress. And we might end up having pain in the back, as opposed to the easy garden cleaning might give us fitness, might give us expansion and extension and flexibility of our body, which is basically like an exercise with a practical result and an outcome. The other way is it's going to give you stress, it's going to give you pain, it's going to give you dissatisfaction. So really, the life of integrity is all about doing things that you want to do, that you are aware that you've been kind of programmed by God before you're even born, okay? Programmed to do these things, becoming aware of those as much as possible, and then doing as many of those things with ease to never give yourself a dis-ease. And what that means is that you can, in theory at least, and really practically, you might meet a lot of people like this who have lived their life with a purpose and with a focus on what they want to do. And they've become very old with years, like they might be 95 years old, but they still look very healthy, young, energetic, focused, happy, willing to help, and they're still enjoying their life. That's how I want to be when I'm 95 or however old I might get to.
Inshallah. Yes, I was thinking about the similar that on Sunday usually our maid don't used to come, and I used to cook all the things, and I used to do all the household chores. And previously my feeling was so bad that only one day I have leave on only on one day, and I have to do all these household chores, and I have to take care of my kids as well. But after meeting you, and just like all my other mentors, I realized this, and I learned this, that each and everything we are doing in our life is purposeful, and we should we should perform every job with full heartedly, not half heartedly. And it is so satisfying, and it is um, uh, so good in a sense that for our health, for our mental and physical health as well. As most of the time, at our subconscious level, there are some blocks that this is not my work to do. This should be done by the maid or by my employee. That's why we feel stressed or frustrated that uh, what should I do, or how should I manage all these works. So if a person is multitasking, how time can be managed effectively, that each and every part of the each and every moment of the life should be lived wholeheartedly in a conscious way. Time
Yeah.
management.
Yeah, so the time management becomes a very important thing when we are wanting to do multiple things in our lives and when we're achieving to do them in parallel. So, for example, I might want to have body fitness at a certain level, uh, but I also want to grow my company and earn bigger amounts of money, and I also want to develop my network that requires me going out and about. And it might also include and involve having to relax more and not spend time with other people, and so on. So this is tricky because often the time in life there are these kind of opposing forces or activities that we want to take part in. So, and they usually all take time. Even if we're just kind of meditating, it takes time. But if we're going out to network with other people, it also takes time. So what am I going to do? Meditate or network with other people? So we need to create some sort of ways in which to manage this, especially if there are ongoing repeat activities, um, and and be able to um, stay principled and disciplined to stick to those activities, which can become quite boring or seemingly boring, and tricky to do, especially not just for 2, 3, 4 days, 7 days, but 20 years, 30 years, 70 years of our life. So then that becomes a really interesting challenge. And those people who stick to their good routines over life most consistently are the ones who create most consistent results and outcomes, and end up growing old healthy without ever really needing to come to someone like you for any kind of chemical medicine. Yeah.
Yes.
Which even over the break holiday, now new year, I ended up getting a flu, and I had like a heavy cough and so on. So even for someone like me who is leading a pretty healthy life overall, I'm still subject to getting colds and flus and so on from time to time. um, and I was having a cough for like 3 weeks and so on, and I was really thinking, gosh, this is really bad. Maybe I should go to a doctor. Okay. So I ended up going to the doctor, and, she asked me, do you live healthy? Do you smoke? Do you drink? Do you, eat bad, sort of, unhealthy food? And said, I don't smoke, I don't drink, I don't eat unhealthy food for the most part, and so on. I drink lots of water and so on. And she said, she checked me up. Your heart is fine. Your oxygenation level's fine. Everything's fine. So you just need to let this flu sort of just go through its cycle. That's just that. It can be up to 6 weeks. But, she was saying, don't take any uh, chemicals, don't even take painkillers if you can avoid to, because all these things have side effects that we don't need or want. And so so sometimes, even when you're leading most cleanest life, you can still have side effects that happens, or you still have bad things happening, but they are going to be less bad than if you're leading a negative life.
Yes, sometimes people say, as you are my Muslim brother and I am also a Muslim. Some of our Muslim sisters think that even we are Muslim and we believe on Allah. Uh, 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 Despite of that, we are suffering from many problems, critical problems like infertility, not having kids. Why Allah don't accept our prayers, and why don't we got this? And when they came up with these type of complaints, I used to give them example of suffering of our beloved prophet Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and that nobody in this world came most beloved to Allah as our prophet, and he lived a life with all sufferings. So why we should complain of these small things? So this is very important for our Muslim community, for our sisters and brothers who are Muslim. They think that if we are Muslim, if we are believer of Allah, then nothing bad should come to us. That is also a belief or concept.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting thing because sometimes I say maybe like humans are too complicated to understand, okay? Because we have all these kind of houses and jobs and living under a government, and there's money, there is all this kind of food supplies and different foods we can eat. So I said, like, that's too much for me to understand, okay? Maybe I can't ever understand humans. So sometimes I say, like, I'll pick a simpler animal, okay? Simpler animal to try and understand. So we have 2 cats at home. So I say, I'm going to just observe my cat, what it does, how it behaves, and what happens to it, okay? For me to then be able to understand that just a simpler system and what's going on. And the cat does every day what a cat does. For the most part, it sleeps. Maybe it kind of lazes around in the garden a little bit. When it's hungry, wants to eat, and so on. But even cats sometimes get diseases, you know. And why did they get diseases? Because it just happens like that. It just happens like that. This is nature. And when the cats get diseases, they really slow down. They actually then even sleep more. They might stop eating, and they just kind of have this kind of calm process through just waiting through that disease to work its way through the system. And it might sometimes take 2 or 3 weeks for it to work through, but after 3 weeks they get better, and then they continue doing what the cats do, which is sleep, eat, laze around, and so on. Okay, so if we can understand that human life, no matter how well we live it, is still going to have some downsides, but those downsides, when they do happen, are not going to be as bad than if we lived a bad life of smoking, drinking, unclean food, stressing all the time, doing things that are really against our lives and bodies. Yeah.
Yes. And one of the things that I was discussing few days ago about spiritual health. I want
Mm-hmm.
to know about that. Last time when I was writing my diary, I have written on it, as I was copying it from your side as well, that it should be integrated, self purposeful connection with God and reality as it is.
Mm-hmm.
Truth of life, honesty, values, all these things. People think that these are the bookish things,
Mm-hmm.
and they have no role in practical life. Do you think that they have a role in practical life, that we should be healthy spiritually as well? Our spiritual life should be also on the grounds of values, integrity, and all these purposeful things.
Absolutely. And I think maybe spirituality is a little bit too complex for people to really understand what it is. But from a psychological point of view, sort of mentally, because we try to think through things, all of us, uh, really the spirituality and the spirit is the programming, the mental programming that's happened, like as soon as we were born, we were kind of spiritually programmed to do something. It's kind of the psychology that we had before we started thinking, as in, oh, that's black, that's white, that's gray, that's blue, and or that's good or bad. We just had this spiritual programming. And then what happens is, over time and life, we get mentally programmed to go against our own spirit. So the shaitan comes in and says,
Yes.
uh, don't do that thing that you were born to do. Do this other thing, right? Because it's got more money. You're quicker going to get to your goals, or you're going to be able to control things and the
Yes.
world and whatever, right? So you then think, okay, forget this thing that I was born to do. I'm going to do what it's like a shortcut thing. Okay. So instead of, for example, staying healthy, just this is simple examples around fitness, right? So instead of going and taking a walk every day for half an hour to an hour in the nature, I'm just going to get some steroids and build extra muscle. Okay, I'm going to inject myself with steroids, build extra muscle, and then I don't have to take a walk, perhaps. That's what the shaitan says. And lo and behold, you realize that if you do take that path, actually, in a very short period of time, you're going to start suffering from all sorts of side effects that steroids bring, like it can make men very violent, for example. So they start beating their wife, or they start assaulting someone down the road, and they get addicted to steroids, or they have some side effect because it's an unclean chemical that starts producing other things like cancer and so on. Or even if you don't work out and you stop working out, your body starts actually degrading a lot faster than if you didn't take that stuff. So actually, all these kind of shortcuts end up being the quicker way to destroy your life, as opposed to taking a consistent and everyday and regular and disciplined self maintenance, management, and bettering process that actually continuously and reliably builds us to cleaner, healthier, uh, happier, blissful, and more spiritually aligned, because we want to have a situation where what we're born to do, what our life purpose is given by God, Allah, to be aligned with what our mental programs are, so they can get us to continuously, disciplinedly put that into practice. And then we have physical and practical results and outcomes that come off of that. So who we are, the being, uh, mentally gets instructed to do that which we are. And then as the result, we end up having practical things in our body and surrounding of what we want to see. That's how it should work. And that's really living with integrity.
Yes. Yes. That is the most important thing. And as I am working on sustainable developmental goals, that is SDG 3 health, and the most important part of that is health for all. And one of the component of that is to reduce maternal mortality and morbidity, and neonatal mortality and morbidity. And people don't know what did we mean by sustainable developmental goals. The word sustainable, would you like to give brief description of this word sustainable?
Absolutely. So sustainable would be basically anything that can persist for a long period of time with minimal input and minimal effort. So, in many respects, we want to live an effortless life that doesn't require lots of resources from the external world for us to continue living. Going back to the cat keeps sleeping, eating, lazing around without then saying, oh, I need some money, or I need a house on top of this, or I need extra this and that in order to be actually living my life. So we want to be a lot more like cats in that respect, that we can sustain continuously, remain blissful, which is higher than happiness. Happiness is like a product of going back to that eating cake. I want to eat some sugar, so I eat cake and then I'm happy. But then it
I am happy.
wears away as soon as I've eaten that cake. I'm like, well, I want to eat another cake, otherwise I won't be happy. So happiness is like the product of an external impact, whereas blissfulness is something that comes from within ourselves. Joy and bliss is produced within ourselves, irrespective of what's going on around the world. So even I know some people who had survived the war in Bosnia who were able to meditate while there was grenade shells falling around. Why? Because they were able
Oh,
to just focus on the bliss and the fact that they were still able to be alive and breathe in those circumstances. So when you're able to generate your inner being or connect with your inner being to such an extent that you can be blissful while the grenades are falling around your house, then how easy is it to be blissful when it's a nice sunny day and you're walking around with your wife or husband or children in a park playing a bit of football or something, or just kind of just enjoying surrounding, just like cats. The cat doesn't come into the house and go for no reason, right? It's just most of the time very, very calm and relaxed. And that's really how we need to be in order to live that sustainable life. Because again, that's not going to create the dis-ease, the stress that creates diseases. It's going to create ease, which enables our bodies and minds and souls really to develop and continue being that which we should be.
so my last question is, uh, in the 2023, I have seen many goals you have write on your timeline: emotional, logical, creativity, academic, romantic, technology, financial, physical, all these. So would you tell me how you manage all these categories of your life that you have written on your timeline: linguistic, creativity,
Yeah.
all these, and do you compare 2022 with 2023, how you manage all these
Yeah,
goals?
sure.
And
Mhm.
practically speaking, many people write goals of the new year, but after
Mhm.
6 months, 8 months, 3 months, even after 1 month,
Mhm.
they forget all the things, forget all the promises they make with themselves, and do nothing.
Yeah, yeah. So
How we
the
can
yeah,
improve this, our habit of implementing and
mhm,
doing things
yeah, yeah.
practically?
We
What
we
we
have
have write
yeah.
on in our diaries.
As humans, we have a tendency to forget. We have tendency to forget, and one of the things that we end up forgetting is ourselves. The forgetfulness goes to the point where we forget who we are altogether. But we certainly then forget what we've decided to do. And again, the shaitan brings us to like, oh, maybe I should be eating that cake, or maybe I should try this new thing here that's being advertised on television that says, again, shortcut to this or quicker way to get that, and so on. So you get pulled to the little kind of, advertisements of things that look, again, beautiful and quick and easy. But most of the time, if ever, they are the actual solution. So in order to not forget oneself, I have yearly goals that then I monitor every day on how I'm doing in each one of those intelligences that you mentioned. So we have multiple intelligences. Some people have heard of logical intelligence, emotional intelligence, financial intelligence, or physical intelligence. But in my model, there's 18 of these intelligences, and it's based on a model called multiple intelligence theory by Howard Gardner. So I actually have my goals and aspirations mapped across each one of those 18 intelligences. And then on a daily basis, I remind myself of what practical I have done in each one of those to then be able to continuously monitor whether I'm doing well or not so well in each one of those. And every day I look to contribute a little by little to each one of those to then help me realize the yearly goal and aspirations and so on.
That's great. That's great. That daily we should have this sense of self accountability, and this can minimize our stress as well. As I have told you that I am running my telemedicine clinic, and my patients are coming
Hmm.
from UK that
Hmm.
that are infertile couple, and most of them females are stressed. So
Yes.
I would like to. I would like to refer some of my patients to you as a coach to
Hmm.
have some clear ideas about in their mind. Will you tell me the way how I can refer my patient that really need help to you? How?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm more than happy to take those referrals, and you can either, send me a message on Facebook or email me, or send me a WhatsApp. There's pretty much I'm open on all channels, and that's really
And your
that.
fresh mind program, we will link all your links,
Hmm.
your YouTube channel, your Facebook, and your freshmind.com, that is your website, all the thing in our description of this live interview session. That's why I am taking permission from you, so that we can on air all these things, so that people can reach you, and they will feel, I think most of the time when I do one to one conversation with the people, I feel it that they need some
Mm.
they did not need any medicine, they need some
Yes,
mental therapy to
yes,
relax.
yes. Um,
That's why I am asking this question. Most
yeah,
of the
so it's
time people
this
don't
the
need any
website.
medicine,
Yeah,
don't need any medicine,
yeah.
really.
Yeah, the website is freshmind.life, because
Fresh
life
mind
is
that
the
life.
important thing here.
Yes.
Freshmind.life. And yes, you're right. Even as my doctor, that I went to sort of just for a quick checkup, she said to me, you don't shouldn't really need to be taking any medicine, because the idea is to, especially coaching, is the thing that tries to deal with the preceding causes of what got people to the point. So if a woman cannot conceive a child because of stress, then the question is, what causes the stress and how can we eliminate that? Because if you de-stress and you get back into ease, then it's natural to just be naturally able to conceive a child. And
Yes.
this happens to men as well, by the way, because I remember when I was wanting to become a father, I used to drink a lot of Red Bull, for example. And I was drinking Red Bull because I thought I needed energy in order to stay alert and so on. So I realized Red Bull actually acts as a bit of like, uh, um, what's the word, the right word? It basically stops men from having, being able to conceive children. So I'd realized if I drink Red Bull, I can't get my wife pregnant. It's weird. But why am I drinking Red Bull? Because I thought I needed energy in order to stay alert, but I don't. That's just nonsense. That's a shaitan programming. So actually, then I don't need Red Bull to have energy, so I can stop drinking that. I'm going to generate energy by doing other things like push-ups and get out there, sprint out in the nature. So I started doing that, and my body started recouping. And lo and behold, 2, 3 weeks later, my wife's like, "Oh, I think I'm pregnant." It's like, okay, that makes sense, because I stopped doing those things that were preventing me from being able to have my body work in a natural way.
Yes. And this is the golden rule that whenever we are close to the nature, we are more healthier, more
Correct. Yeah.
more blissful, and more and that's why I am doing all this on social media, that my all my female health population and male as well, infertile couple, they start their they start their first talk with this, that we are stressed, we are very stressed. How 10 years passed, 8 years passed. And I used to publish my stories, my successful stories as well, for the motivation of those couple that are in a hopeless phase, uh, and that there is nothing to going to work for us. And
Yeah.
that is very important, that the people like you, who give hope to the others, and give services to others, and that people should know about you and your services as well, so that they can get it. As in our society, due to the social media and all this increase screen time of the people, I think that more is there is a vicious cycle that more stress is going
Yes.
to generate.
Mhm.
People used to give more time to this social media and this all this stuff, and they think that they will get relaxed after watching TikTok, after watching Facebook, after watching YouTube, and
Yeah.
after 3 to 4 hours Netflix, after three to
Mhm.
four or 6 hours of screen time, they think that they will feel relaxed, but results are opposite. Do you think that
Exactly.
this screen time is going to give bad health to our people?
Yeah, screen
Mostly.
time is for the most part is not healthy. We can, in that sense, one of the most important things to do is to make sure that we only use the screen time for those things that will contribute to our lives, and anything that doesn't, just cut it out. And actually, when we do cut it out, we find that we have a lot more time in the day to achieve those things that we are really wanting to be focused on and that are part of our life purpose.
Yes, and mostly people ask me a question that what is your purpose in life? So I will ask the same question to you. What is your purpose in life?
So my purpose in life is to help raise human consciousness, and this is what we're talking about all the time here. As I help other people become aware more and more of what they should be doing in their lives for their life purpose, then the world becomes better and better place. Because when people are alert, what they need to be doing, what they should be doing, what's the best for them, then they actually naturally start doing that which is best for them, and then that has a knock-on effect on all of us because everything just becomes better.
Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
giving us
Thank
time,
you.
and it was nice talking with you. And I
Likewise.
hope so in the future you will give us your precious time as well for another
Absolutely.
session. Thank you so much, brother.
Yeah, always,
Thank
always
you.
happy. Thank you so much, and salam alaikum to all the audience and listeners. And I trust that 2023 is going to be a fantastic year for you if you choose to do what we spoke about in this video, and just be best for and towards yourself, as we've kind of laid out in some of these tips here. So it's actually much easier than most people make it out to be in their heads. So yeah.
Thank you so much.
Okay,
Allah
thanks.
Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz. Bye bye.